Welcome to Community Focus. I'm Larry Strother, and this week we're going to take a look at the city council races for Los Alamitos. With me right now is from District 1, we have Tanya Doby. Tanya, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, why don't you take a minute to let the voters at home know about you?
Oh, this is the most fun question. Well, my name is Tanya Doby. As Larry said, I'm from District 1. I've lived in the community for about 7 years. I moved here for the school district. And I have a husband. We've been married 18 years. And my son is a sixth grader at Oak, and I have a third grader over at Rossmore. And I am also a small business owner. And I love Los Al.
All right, well, you got a lot to tell us about yourself now. So obviously, you're on the council now.
Yeah.
At the baptism of fire. Budgetary challenges are one of the city's biggest challenges out there. What's your position on Los Alamitos Measure Y? And tell us what else you think could be done to help resolve the city's budget challenges.
Okay, well, anyone that's ever seen me speak, you know I am probably the most simple council member that you'll encounter, or politician for that matter. For me, it boils down to the tax revenues that we are looking to collect with the 1.5% increase will either go to our city or go to our state. It's not a matter of if we don't ask and receive the 1.5 that no one gets it. It's more so a matter of either your city gets it or your state gets it. And that makes it a very simple decision for me because I moved here for the type of community that I'm in, and it's only sustainable with an increase in finances. And to the second point, what else could be done? It's really trying to, how do you attract more businesses? We're kind of in an interesting space because you have to be solvent, you have to be a viable space for people to want to come. So we need finances for that. I'm sure you've heard it takes money to make money. So we're trying to get a head start. And then as we make ourselves a more attractive space to move into, besides just our schools, because I moved here for our schools, people move here for our schools, but then they move away once their children outgrow our spaces. We want them to stay and to remain and to continue to thrive here. So, you know, inviting businesses here, trying to get commerce here, trying to figure out other ways to become financially stable.
All right, the budget is not the only challenge in Los Alamitos. What are the biggest ones besides the budget?
So we're small. So it's usually simple stuff like, now I'm on Nextdoor, but I don't get the notifications, and anyone that does get them, unless you like being bombarded, I suggest you just turn the notifications on. You can just log back in and you can still see everything. But I see a lot of issues with trash. There's some issues with parking. There are some issues with, I've seen a few things about like the multifamily units that are being allowed into our city, which is a state mandate. It's not a city mandate. We fought it as best we could, but there are some things that are completely outside of the city's control. But it's really more simple because it's smaller. Like we don't have grandiose issues. Like I'll see one person say, "Oh, did you see the homeless guy?" It'll be like one. So we don't have huge issues. We've got simple things that we can really kind of laser in and focus on and address better as far as I'm concerned, but it's smaller stuff.
You're one of 5 council members.
Yes.
What skills or traits do you have that you think are especially suited to getting people to work together?
So my background is human resources. I specialize in management trainings and team building and really collaborating together. Those are like my strong suits. And I also have a very different perspective, at least especially currently, from anyone else on the council. I'm the only person that physically resides in apartment row. And the benefit to having that perspective is, the best example I could give you is when all of the parks were shutting down, and in LA County, they just shut them down. They were like, nope, we're not dealing with it. We're not gonna even try to police if people are on the grass, if they're on the playground equipment, if they're walking our pathways, we don't care, shut it down. So when it came to Los Al, we had that same decision to make. And at first it was like, yeah, we'll just shut them down. We'll just gate them off. We'll close the bathrooms so we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about sending the Rex people out there, nothing. And I was like, well, if you do that, you will cause us to break that rule because we're on a lockdown, and where I live, I don't have a yard. And a lot of my neighbors, we don't have yards. So if we don't have a space to go, the only space we have is the park. Now, I understand locking the bathroom because that is an expense that would be incurred. Or, roping off the playground equipment, I get it, we can't go out there and clean it all up. But just leaving we have some really nice large grass areas open. It's like, I really think it would go a long way with our residents. And with the rest of the council, it wasn't that anyone was opposed to it. Everyone almost immediately agreed, but that's just not their perspective. They didn't have to think about that because either their children are grown and out of the house or they have a yard for their kids. So I think it's things like that where there's a different lens, there's a different, like, I've been through different things, I've seen different things. That is probably the greatest asset that I offer to our council. You
mentioned a thing that kind of grew out of COVID-19. It's obviously here. It's going to have an impact. What do you think or what do you fear might be the lasting impacts that affect the city the most?
Well, I have seen some of our businesses leave. I've seen some of our businesses close. And because I am also a small business owner, I immediately, soon as I saw the impact and really decimation that was flowing across small businesses, I reached out to our city manager. I was like, hey, how do we help our businesses? How do we help these small people that if their doors close, they won't be able to open them anymore? And we began looking at some of the funding. Like larger cities, they have it. Larger counties, they have it. LA has it so streamlined that they actually give monies to other people. But here, and we got several different loans that we were able to give to our small businesses. And that meant a lot to me as not just a council member, but also as a small business owner who was not eligible for the money that came here. But it still made me very happy. I feel like that was a great impact for our community. Like, no, we care, guys. We're trying to work together. What can we do to make sure, when they said that restaurants could reopen, they were like, all right, look, we'll grant you on the spot. Just get your doors open. How do we help you? How do we help you? And that's really slightly easier in a smaller community because you could just call somebody on the phone. We're not even 3 square miles. You could just really walk over there and say, hey, what do you need? How can I help you? Like our city chamber, our Chamber of Commerce, they've been really instrumental in trying to make sure that everybody stays on the same page and we stay connected. Because sometimes you just need to know that somebody cares about what you're going through and dealing with. And I think that's our major focus and push right now is like, hey, we're here. We're together. We're going to get through this together. You don't have to do it by yourself.
This next question might be a softball for you, knowing your background and your involvement with the schools. But our community is very intertwined and interdependent.
Yes.
On other agencies,
yes,
especially the school district and even Rossmore. So how would you facilitate even better relationships with those agencies?
Well, I'm still very involved. I tried to step away, but I talked to one of my friends who's on the PTA council yesterday, and she was like, Tanya, we need a liaison between the Los Al at home parents and our PTA. We've got to get that information going. I was like, absolutely. Like, I'm still on the steering committee for my daughter's elementary school, and it's really presence. It's being present. I tell anybody, it's always funny to me when people are like, oh, we're so glad you came to our event. I was like, first of all, I don't know any better. I really think it's my job to come. If you ask me, if you invite me to come, I really think that that's my job. I should show up as an ambassador for the city, as a face to let you know that, hey, we're here and we've got you. And it's the same with school events. Or I don't know what events that Rossmore has, but I have a lot of friends that live in Rossmore, and just making sure if they're like, well, Tanya, I have a question about this. Not saying, well, you live over there, we live over here, I don't have to listen to you, but making sure that the communication stays open and just being available. I have found that that really goes a very long way, and we are very interdependent on one another. Like, the school needs the city, because if the city of Los Alamitos doesn't exist, it doesn't matter how good your schools are, because they won't be anywhere. But then we also need the schools. People move here for them. And Rossmore, I think just because you're right in the middle of it all, like it does us no good. It does us no good if any of us are at odds with anyone, because you won't get anywhere.
Obviously, it's a general election year, very acrimonious climate. May not be new, but it's certainly even more visible than ever before. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think it might negatively impact the city? Or do you think it's just one of those things that it happens? And
I think that it can. And that's when we have an opportunity to grow. Like, that's the way that I see adversity. To me, adversity is it's just an opportunity to grow. It does not have to be necessarily a very bad thing. Like, I know that there are some people, they're losing friendships, family, over what's happening across our nation. And to me, it's more like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, let's just sit down and let's talk about it. Let me really listen to what you're saying. Like, if that's really what you believe, if you believe that with every fiber of your being, then let me set my pride aside really quick and really hear what you're saying. And that is the way I approach anything. And we don't have to agree. Ask my husband, he'll tell you, she don't always agree with me, but we respect each other and we approach it with love. I think love is really what's missing across the board. Like, people like, you can't cuss somebody out and be like, but I love you. To me, now that is my very firm opinion. You're not gonna cuss me out and then tell me that you love me. But if we could sit down and really listen, not listen to respond, but like listen to hear what the person is saying. Because sometimes people say things and it's not what they meant. And if you're really listening, you can hear their heart when they're speaking instead of their words. Because sometimes people don't always have the words to say, they just know that they need to get something out. But when you really stop and sit still, and it's like when your children are learning to share and they're still learning how to get all of those really big emotions out. You've got to sit and just, because they might say some mean stuff. Like, you're the worst mommy ever. For the record, my children never said that. But if they did, that's not what they mean. Something is so big in them, they can't handle it. They don't have any other words. So it's, my job to really try to hear what they're saying. And I think that as leaders, that's our job, is to stop and really listen to what people are saying, and not, if it gets petty, you don't have to do that. You're a leader. And that's what leaders do. That's our charge as a real leader, is to make sure, number one, people got something that they can follow. And number two, that they feel like you're worth it. You're worth following because you hear them. You're with them.
Okay, 30 seconds, your best elevator pitch to the people of Los Alamitos. But
well, y'all, listen, I love the community that I'm in. I'm the type of person that I cannot just sit back and not be a part if I see something that needs to be done or addressed. I have to step up and do it. I like to say I'm an introverted advocate, and I'm just here to do what's best for our city. And I hope that you will join me in doing that. Thank you.
thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you always, Larry. Thank
Tanya
you.
Doby, candidate for District 1.
District 1.
All right, we'll be back in a second.
When I still came in under time.
You did.